It smells like real blood. Here. 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 I don't think so.
No, I'm sure I was like,
She got a black eye and everything. And it smells like real blood.
On October 29, 2020, Adam Webb had gone to a Walmart in Hot Springs, Arkansas, expecting nothing more than an ordinary grocery trip. But as he returned to his truck after shopping, something unusual caught his eye. A black bag, eerily tucked away in the back of his vehicle. Thinking it was just another case of someone tossing trash into his truck, Adam decided to take a closer look. But what he found made his hair stand on end. Inside the bag were some pieces of mysterious clothing stained with dark red liquid. Adam's instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. He immediately stepped back and dialed 911. When officers arrived, they cautiously examined the suspicious bag. At first, as it was the night before Halloween, they wondered if it could be a sick prank, disturbing yet actually harmless. However, those thoughts were quickly shattered. What was inside the bag was far from a joke. Hidden within the pile of blood-soaked clothing was a real human head. The sight was so gruesome that it sent a wave of dread through them. Who could have done something so horrific? And how did the head end up here? Before we answer these questions, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to stay updated with our latest videos. Connie Joan Goodwin, 63-year-old, was a devoted mother and a respected teacher who resided in Deerfield, Missouri. As a mother of 6, she poured her heart into raising her children with love and care. Throughout her career, she shared her passion for education, teaching in Minnesota, Kansas, and Missouri. Outside of work, she found joy in quilting, sewing, and gardening, simple pleasures that reflected her nurturing spirit. But on October 29, 2020, everything changed. When Connie failed to report for work as a health insurance adjuster, her colleagues grew concerned. A coworker, sensing something was wrong, decided to check on her. Upon arriving at Connie's home and finding it locked with no response, she called the police for assistance. But none of the officers was prepared for the horror awaiting them. Inside the house, they discovered Connie's lifeless body in the bathtub with a pool of her own blood, her head missing. The gruesome nature of the scene left even the most seasoned investigators shaken. Later that same day, the nightmare took an even darker turn. Connie's severed head was found nearly 300 miles away, discarded behind a truck at a Walmart in Hot Springs, Arkansas. As the grim truth unraveled, Connie's husband, John Goodwin, was plunged into despair. He had been away on a trip to Hot Springs, unaware of the tragedy that had struck his home. However, investigators were about to uncover another shocking twist. John and Connie's 38-year-old son, Aaron Goodwin, who had accompanied his father to Hot Springs on the same day, had mysteriously vanished without a trace. With a murder this brutal and a missing person in the equation, the case quickly became the town's top priority. Was Aaron also a victim, or was he somehow connected to the gruesome crime? As soon as Connie's head was found, the police wasted no time in scouring the area for clues. Their first step was to review Walmart's surveillance footage, to see if the mysterious bag had already been in Adam Webb's truck when he arrived, or if someone had placed it there later. They also searched the shopping carts and nearby dumpsters for any discarded evidence that might provide further insight. Unfortunately, the search revealed no additional clues, and the footage confirmed their growing suspicions. The bag had been in the truck from the moment Adam arrived. The investigators were now dealing with the severed head of a deceased woman and the man whose truck it was found in. With no immediate suspects, Adam quickly became their prime person of interest. Despite the weight of the situation, officers maintained a calm demeanor, masking their suspicions as they prepared to dig deeper into his story.
You just were putting the first in there and saw the bag? Yeah, I saw the bag. I said, oh, somebody's throwing trash back here or something. So I opened the first one to see if it was garbage, and then I saw the red in it. So it looked like some socks or something.
Okay.
When questioned about his discovery of the bag, Adam's response was shaken, but straightforward and cooperative. However, the detectives knew they couldn't take anything at face value. After a brief exchange, they decided to take Adam to the station for further questioning. Inside the interrogation room, they started with the basics, asking him to walk them through his day. He explained that he left his house, went to the store, picked up a few groceries. Milk, flour, eggs, what his wife needed for baking, and then returned to his truck, where he noticed the suspicious bag. His routine sounded typical and his account consistent, but investigators knew that killers often tried to appear normal. They needed more. Shifting their focus, they asked if anything unusual had happened the night before. Adam hesitated briefly before mentioning an older man he had seen a few times in the neighborhood. "I've noticed this guy walking around lately. Older gentleman with a backpack. I've seen him a couple of times, but I don't know where he's going." Intrigued, the officers pressed further. "Do you think he could be staying nearby? Any homeless camps around your street?" Adam shook his head. "Not that I know of." Despite his cooperative demeanor and plausible answers, the officers remained cautious. Adam claimed he had no involvement in the murder, and so far his statements appeared credible. But with no other leads, they couldn't rule him out just yet. As the investigation progressed, the victim's identity was finally confirmed as Connie Goodwin. To get a clearer picture of what had happened, investigators reached out to John Goodwin, Connie's husband, who had just reported his son went missing just hours earlier. Now, faced with the devastating news of his wife's murder, John showed up in a state of shock and despair. "I've been trying to piece this day together. I was so messed up. I called my brother to come and drive me home. My brother and sister are on their way now. I didn't think I could do it," John admitted, his voice trembling. Despite his overwhelming grief, John managed to provide detectives with some valuable information. He recounted his trip to Hot Springs with his son Aaron, struggling to piece together the timeline of events. John and Aaron left their home in Deerfield around 1 p.m. and arrived in Hot Springs by 8 p.m. on October 28th. Aaron sorted through his gear upon arrival and assured his father he'd be joining him in their room shortly. However, as an hour passed with no sign of him, John's concern grew. When he went to check on Aaron, his son had vanished without a trace, along with all his belongings. Fearing the worst, John filed a missing persons report for Aaron. He informed authorities that his son had been acting increasingly withdrawn and troubled in recent weeks. Aaron had been living in a trailer next to the family home and had recently quit his job as a bartender at the Eagles Club in Missouri. The trip to Hot Springs had been Aaron's idea, a desperate attempt to clear his mind and regain some sense of direction in his life. The weight of suspicion hung heavily over him as detectives carefully probed into Aaron's mental state and the family's recent struggles.
Does he have any mental diagnoses?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Not really, but I mean, you can tell when someone's not thinking right, saying off the wall stuff, like about God and stuff even, it's like.
John insisted that Aaron had planned the trip to Hot Springs himself and was supposed to stay there for 3 days while John intended to return home. Now, with Aaron missing and unanswered questions piling up, investigators were left scrambling to connect the dots in a case that was becoming darker by the hour. However, there was something in John's demeanor that didn't sit well with them. Despite the tragedy unfolding around him, John displayed moments of unusual detachment. As John recounted his journey to Hot Springs, his recollections were precise, but his emotions swung dramatically. Too composed at times, too chaotic at others. The officers couldn't help but question his sincerity. As officers pushed for more details about Aaron, an extremely suspicious revelation emerged. He casually mentioned that he had Aaron's phone. It had been found that morning by a stranger in the back of a truck in Hot Springs. The person had texted him from the phone, stating they had left it at the front desk of the DoubleTree Hotel. John's reaction to this discovery seemed strangely subdued. "I didn't think to grab it," he admitted, almost as an afterthought. The officer's suspicions grew. Who had left the phone there? Could it have been Aaron himself? And if so, why would he abandon it at such an odd location? The detectives decided to delve deeper into the preparation for the trip, which John claimed Aaron had planned on his own. "Do you know what Aaron had in his backpack?" John shrugged. "I have no idea. Just a change of clothes, food, I guess. I mean, I'm sure he had clothes." But then, almost as an afterthought, he mentioned something that made the officer's blood run cold. He did have a black plastic bag too. Come to think of it, like a trash bag. It's not in the truck anymore. So that's gone. He might have had stuff in there. I'm sure he did. He threw it in the back when we left. It was raining, so I just assumed he was keeping it dry. The significance of John's words wasn't lost on the officers. At that point in the investigation, only the police and the truck driver knew that Connie's severed head had been found in a black trash bag. John's calm, almost indifferent demeanor suggested he had no knowledge of this gruesome detail. Yet the mention of Aaron's plastic bag left detectives reeling. Was it just a coincidence, or did John know more than he was letting on? As the officers struggled to process the chilling connection, John made another revelation, one that pushed Aaron further into the spotlight as a prime suspect. The air in the interrogation room grew tense, and every eye in the room was fixed on John. John described how Aaron made an unusual request as they were preparing to leave the house that day. Here's where it gets weird. I said goodbye to Connie, kissed her, locked the door behind me, and then Aaron asked me to go to Walmart in Fort Scott. The request itself wasn't particularly strange until John revealed the specific item Aaron had asked for. He wanted a pair of black dress gloves, leather if possible. I asked him why we couldn't just grab them on the way, but he insisted. He said he needed time for prayer and really wanted me to go get them. Aaron's spiritual habits weren't unusual, John admitted. He had spoken before about needing moments of solitude to talk to the Lord. So John reluctantly agreed and made the 15-minute drive to Walmart alone, leaving Aaron behind at home. When he couldn't find the gloves, he purchased a few other items instead. The time on the receipt was 12:32 p.m. It wasn't until much later that he started piecing together how strange the entire situation had been. When I got back home, he was standing at the end of the driveway. He threw a black plastic bag into the truck and hopped in like he was ready to go. He already had his backpack, and I thought it was weird, but I didn't really question it at the time. He just said, "I'm ready to go." Detectives listened intently, their focus narrowing in on the plastic bag, another chilling connection to the crime. John casually mentioned it again, seemingly unaware of its significance. When asked what Aaron needed the gloves for, John could only shake his head. I wondered that too. He's been dressing all in black lately, but he never really told me why. The detectives pressed further, asking for more details about Aaron's whereabouts during the request. John explained that Aaron had been standing near his trailer when he asked for the favor, right next to the driveway. He was just there, waiting, like he had it all planned out. Apparently, it wasn't until John was sitting in the interrogation room, laying out the timeline piece by piece, that he began to scrutinize his son's actions. The strange request for gloves, the urgency for prayer, and the black plastic bag all painted a troubling picture that was impossible to ignore. With each realization, John faced a terrifying reality, one that left him feeling utterly helpless in the midst of an unfolding nightmare.
You don't think he killed him, dude?
Mr. Goodwin, I have no idea. What's your feeling?
I think he might. I think he might have. I don't know.
John started to break down. Desperation filled his voice as he wrestled with the possibility. He tried to piece everything together, reviewing phone calls, receipts, and timestamps, anything that could provide answers. But the more he thought, the more doubt crept in. Had he missed something? Was there a sign he should have noticed? To find answers, detectives pressed John to revisit every moment of their trip to Hot Springs, focusing on the critical day of October 28, 2020. They needed him to recall every detail of the last time he saw Aaron, hoping to fill in the gaps and uncover the truth. John took a deep breath and began recounting their arrival. After pulling into the parking lot at the DoubleTree, he remembered heading inside to check in, stopping at the restroom, and realizing he hadn't given Aaron a room key. He went back outside, exiting through a side door instead of the main entrance. When he returned to the truck, Aaron was there, rummaging through his belongings. John handed him the key, and Aaron went inside for a while before returning. They stood by the truck, chatting briefly, while Aaron continued digging through his things. John estimated they had been outside together for about 10 to 15 minutes. However, when officers cross-checked John's statements with surveillance footage and other evidence, they uncovered glaring inconsistencies. His timeline didn't align with what they had found, and certain key details were missing or misstated. The weight of suspicion, which had rested heavily on Aaron, began shifting back toward John. According to surveillance footage from the DoubleTree Hotel, John's truck pulled into the lot at approximately 7:43 p.m. He entered the lobby to check in and then headed toward the elevator, just as he had described. But soon a troubling inconsistency emerged. The footage showed John entering and exiting the building far more frequently than he had admitted. Even more alarming, he was seen confidently using the elevator, contradicting his earlier claim of confusion. These discrepancies painted a disturbing picture. Was John withholding crucial information, or was he simply too overwhelmed to keep track of the details accurately? The gravity of the situation deepened. The two people who meant the most to Connie, her husband and her son, were now at the center of suspicion. The investigators couldn't ignore the unsettling possibility that the truth was entangled in a web of family deception. Had the people closest to Connie betrayed her in the worst possible way? As the tension in the interrogation room grew, John suddenly dropped another bombshell, something he hadn't mentioned before. On the morning of October 29, 2020, he found a note resting on top of the hotel room key on his console. It was a small, crumpled piece of paper that simply read, "I believed I was doing God's will." Without thinking much of it at the time, he had tucked it into the cup holder and continued with his day. As the horror of his wife's death unfolded shortly after, he had totally forgotten about it in the chaos of the day, until this moment in the question room. The note's cryptic message left investigators with a chilling possibility. Was Aaron, John's troubled son, confessing to something? Did he truly believe he was acting under some divine influence? The officers knew they were wading through murky waters, but this newfound evidence might finally lead them to the truth. With the note now in their possession, the detectives braced themselves to deliver the most devastating news to John. Until that moment, he only knew that Connie was gone. What he didn't know was the gruesome truth of how she had died.
I'm going to be a little graphic with you, okay? We get a call today that a gentleman has called 911, and he has told the operator that there is a black trash bag in his truck, in the middle of his truck. He's never seen it before, and whenever he opened this truck, there was blood inside the bag that had come out.
There was blood in the bag.
Yes, sir.
Lots of blood? I mean, for what? I mean,
Also,
I guess like the little
There,
yeah.
there is,
how bad was she?
there
How
is,
bad was she?
there is a body part
Oh, God, man.
in this bag.
Is it her?
And by all intents and purposes, it does appear that it is your wife.
John broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Looking back, he was consumed with regret over not reacting sooner to Connie's unanswered calls. At the time, he hadn't been alarmed because Connie often experienced unexplained medical episodes, periods where she would need to lie down for a day or two. It wasn't unusual for her to miss calls during those times, and he initially assumed this was one of those moments, so he reached out to his brother and sister-in-law for help. By the time his family arrived at the house, Connie's coworker had also shown up, equally concerned about her absence from work. It all happened quickly. 911 was called, and officers forced their way into the locked home. What they found inside shattered John's whole world. He had been hoping that Connie's silence was due to her illness, but instead, it was a violent act that had ripped her from his life forever. Watching John's grief, the investigators somehow found themselves with a clearer picture. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly falling into place, and with John's revelations about Aaron's behavior, his strange request for black gloves, his erratic manner, and now the eerie note, everything pointed in his direction. The focus on Aaron intensified, and further investigations soon uncovered chilling new evidence. When investigators reviewed the hotel's CCTV footage from the night before Connie's severed head was found, they saw Aaron Goodwin walking away from his father's truck in the hotel parking lot, carrying a black trash bag. For a moment, Aaron appeared lost in thought, wandering aimlessly before making a calculated move. He discreetly placed the bag into the back of Adam Webb's truck, a man entirely uninvolved in the horrific saga. The deliberate act suggested that Aaron had been trying to shift suspicion onto an innocent bystander. And then, just as eerily as he appeared, Aaron vanished into the night. With the discovery of this incriminating footage, law enforcement realized that Aaron posed an imminent threat to society. His increasingly unstable mental state, coupled with his known access to weapons, made him a dangerous fugitive. Authorities wasted no time in issuing a wanted notice, urging the public to remain vigilant and report any sightings. For 5 agonizing months, they searched tirelessly, following every possible lead. The case seemed to be at a standstill until March 6, 2021, when an urgent call from a local family on the outskirts of Hot Springs shattered the silence. The family reported something unsettling they had found while clearing timber on their vast 40-acre property. When officers arrived, they were met with a painful scene. Scattered in the dense undergrowth were human remains, tattered clothing, decomposed body parts, and signs of scavenging animals. The unmistakable jacket and personal belongings confirmed the body belonged to Aaron Goodwin. Authorities speculated that Aaron had taken his own life, perhaps unable to live with the horrors he had committed. His death only deepened the mystery surrounding his mother's brutal murder. With Aaron gone, the true motive behind Connie's death would never be found. As investigators combed through the remnants of Aaron's life, they uncovered further evidence that suggested he had been experiencing a severe psychotic episode. One of the most disturbing pieces of evidence was a voicemail Aaron had left for his father shortly before the murder.
Got to get out of there. Do not be home on Halloween. I'm serious. John, you got to renounce Emmanuel as the Savior. Go back to Jesus. I'm not shitting you. The Aryans are coming.
The message painted a picture of a man consumed by delusions. Despite the alarming nature of the voicemail, John and Connie dismissed it, believing it to be another of Aaron's unstable thoughts. Tragically, their inaction would cost Connie her life. Until now, law enforcement continues to search for answers, trying to piece together the final moments that led to Connie's murder. One prevailing theory suggests that Aaron, gripped by psychosis, believed he was acting for a higher purpose, and did what he thought was right in his deluded state of mind. John, Connie's grieving husband, was left to face an unbearable reality. He was forced to mourn not only the brutal loss of his beloved wife, but also the crushing realization that their own son was responsible for her horrific murder. And just when he thought it couldn't get any worse, tragedy struck again. A few months later, Aaron took his own life, adding another layer of grief to John's already broken heart. John's torment was a cruel reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness. What do you think really happened in Connie's tragic murder? Was Aaron truly suffering from a psychotic episode that led him to commit such an unimaginable act? Was there anything the parents could have done to prevent it all? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this case compelling, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any suggestions for future cases you'd like us to cover, feel free to drop them in the comments section. Until next time,